Welcome to another edition of the Joe Dorgan Show. This is episode 5 with this very special guest, my friend Norman. How are you? You there?
Man, how are you doing?
Man, I'm great. It's been a long time.
It has been. You know what? Too long. In fact, man, too long. I gotta say, I miss every day. I think when you and I were talking, I was like, I miss every bit of El Paso and the 915, man, all the time. You can take yourself out of El Paso, right? But you can't take the El Paso out of you. It's a thing, man.
Absolutely. And you're now living in Dallas?
Yeah, right now. I live in Dallas. I moved out here in 2010. My little boy is 7 now, and now that we've just kind of set up a life for him, so to speak. It's like you just get planted in the blink of an eye. It's what it feels like, right? Life just moves so fast. In fact, this is his killer bracelet he made for me, by the way. So living that dad life, man. All we do is music, and he loves music, and we play music all day. And he finally got to see El Paso right before COVID. Interesting story, actually. It was the week of right before the lockdowns, man. We were in El Paso. We were at a House of Pizza.
Yes.
Closed early for some crazy reason, and we were like, what is going on? People started texting me like, are you watching the news? What's this and this and this? And we're like, what? So we actually had to drive during that entire time. Like, it was like chasing, right? It hadn't hit El Paso yet, but it hit Dallas, and it felt like this crazy, like a apocalyptic end of the world type thing, right? It was crazy.
Old is your son?
What's that?
How old is your son?
He's 7.
And he's going to follow you in music? He loves music, I imagine.
Man, absolutely. He loves music. It's an age-old thing, right? You're like, don't get into it. But at the same time, you're like, that would be great because I would love that. In fact, when I was a couple years back, I was kind of I hit a wall with music. You're like, what do I do? Where do I go? I think everyone comes to that point with anything that we do, right? And he must have been like 3 years old, and he was like, he had a little drum kit in the house, and he's like, Dad, get your guitar. And I'm like, okay. And he starts banging on the drums. He wants me to play, so I start like jamming along with him, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. I didn't realize that he'd never seen this part of his dad. He's seen it little, and we played, but he wasn't old enough to realize what was going on. And so he just really reignited my love for music and doing different things, because for me, I was doing it since I was 5 years old. I loved music. I started trying to do shows and playing out at 13 years old, as because you would get mad at me for flyering your place, and I'd do it anyways. You know what I mean? You used to bust my chops all the time. Stop putting flyers everywhere. And I'm like, at least I'm working, man. But you get into it so young that it's like, for some people that I guess they start later, after college, or, a lot of my friends would take their financial aid money and buy an instrument and start a band, right? I already had 10, 12 years on them. So you hit a certain point where you're like, dude, what is left to do? But he gave me that innocent love for music again, right? That feeling of that 12-year-old boy being in my parents, rocking out in the basement with all my friends, with Cesar from ministry. He lived across the street from me, and we would move our amps on our skateboards, and we would just jam. And we started our band called Sad But True because we loved Metallica, and we played Smells Like Teen Spirit and Enter Sandman over and over for 5 hours because that's all we knew how to play. But you miss that pure love of music, right? So my little boy, jamming with him, brought that back. And now, he messes with music all the time. He plays drums, he plays piano. We'll be cruising in the car, and he'll go, Daddy, give me the phone. And I'm like, what, baby? And he's like, I got a beat. And he'll go to the voice notes, and he starts, and he just starts doing stuff, and I love that. So he's really brought that back. He reignited my love for music, which I don't know that we ever lose it, but I know you've been there, where it's just like,
well, shoot, my son, who takes guitar lessons from you. You had that school here in El Paso, and I got to see that recital of him on stage with you playing Kashmir. Oh my God, I still have that video. I love watching that.
You know what, man? We were trying to track that down actually the other day. He was like, dude, do you know who has that whole concert? And I was like, I do know one person that does. And we reached out to him, and he's trying to to digitize it, because he used it on an old, like, I mean, this was what, 2007? When you think about it, you're like, wow, it's 15 years ago, dude. He was using like an old, like, handheld, like VHS, where you had like the adapter to like actually watch it in your VCR. So he's like, yeah, I'm going to get it on DVD, get it to you guys. But yeah, it's that love where you just do it, right? You don't think about anything. You just love it. And I remember, Ian just working on that song like crazy over and over and over again. And it's funny how just when you think someone isn't going to hit it, because we actually haven't done like a show, right? You're like, oh no, what's going to happen? And that's the excitement that I miss about music now, right? When you've been through it in the business so long, you know, like how it's going to go, what it's going to look like. Hey, show up for sound check at 3, but it's really at 5. You know what I mean? Like all the things that happen, like, but there's that pure excitement again of like, I'm going to click 1, 2, 3 because I'm playing drums. We don't know what's going to happen until we're done. And he just nailed it. And I remember having such a cool, like, it was a surreal moment with him because he became another person, if you remember that. You know what I mean? When he was playing that show, I was like, this isn't the Ian that's been learning the song, man. He was like going off, and dude, it was awesome. And that's that feeling that we all do it for at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. So let people know. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but like you had several pretty successful El Paso bands before you left to Dallas. Tell us a little bit about your past.
We did, man.
Go ahead.
You know, I miss those days so much. I was in a band called Swim, Super Soul, Lila, Never Enough with Keith and Trevor from Throwdown and 18 Visions. And that was my first time I got to combine forces, you know, with someone who had just come off Epic Records. It was a big thing. And for me, it was finally like my shot, right? Because I'd grown up with Tony Hajar from At the Drive-In, again, living on the other block on Wheeling with Cesar and I. And it's crazy to look back and you think like, wow, like there was like 3 or 4 of us that lived in, you know, Manhattan Heights by Memorial Park within 3 blocks of each other. And each one of us ended up being able to do something, you know, substantial in music, like Cesar with Ministry and all his great projects. Tony Hajar with At the Drive-In and Sparta, you know what I mean? You're like, what? And then me, you know, just recently getting to do a couple, you know, Billboard Top 40 rock tracks. It's like, man, we all just grew up in that little corner, playing the same places, you know, working with the same great people that supported us, such as yourself. And to think that like, man, just a bunch of little dreamers in this little town, in this little 2-3 block radius, ended up making as much noise as we could, coming from a place where no one really said that we ever could. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. And I think it instilled, you know, anytime I talk to people, I tell them coming from El Paso instilled a deeper appreciation, I feel like, for anything that comes our way, because it wasn't always as easy, right? I mean, even to go play the next neighboring big city, if you're like, hey, let's go to Dallas, 10 hours away. You know what I mean? San Antonio, 8 hours. It was always a trek. There was nothing really easy for us to get, and we all had to grind it out. And it was such a beautiful time too, man. Club 101 was bumping, the Attic was happening, like everyone was really pushing like live local original music. And it, even though I was like 15 and 16, right, it was still like, it was cool, you know, again, sneaking into Joe's Club. But the Flyer, it was like we all had this crazy work ethic. I don't remember a time not working, right? Like even being young cats, Jim Ward, like, you know, we were all just going at it all the time, and it created something. I just feel special and different that you know, that for me, just coming from, you know, the 915, it was always, we were a special little clan that had to go through certain obstacles that no one will ever really understand the way we did. And then it's even kind of cooler to be within a couple blocks of each other, you know?
Yeah, there was a lot of love and support, but what I got a kick out also too, there were some haters. I mean, like I got people saying, well, why is Norman's band always opening up for your shows? You know, because agencies would say, well, pick a band that can draw and, you know, will help, you know, because nowadays it's these package tours, 3 or 4 bands, and I hate that. But it was nice to have a national act with and then, you know, then we started doing just your shows, you know. People were like,
you know what I loved about all of that too, Joe, and yeah, with those package tours, I mean, that stuff's great because these are the things that we get to do that help us to be on the road. But we didn't we were taught how to grow with those opportunities. And yeah, we had the haters, but it was like, again, I felt like I was always out there and I just wanted to do it. And I'm like, hey, I want to be the person somebody would want to bet on. So I want to see someone that's out there flyering, running to Kinko's, bugging me, calling my cell phone, trying to find me, coming to the club. Man, I went to this concert. There's this kid's flyers on all the cars, like at the Coliseum, right? Hey, I went to this club. There's this kid running around, right? It was like, it taught me, it gave me a system, in other words, where it was like, okay, I figured it out here at home. Now let's start doing this in other cities. And that's what we would do. We started to grow out, to Launchpad and Sunshine Theater and Albuquerque, getting out in Tucson. And there was this little circuit that we could hit that I don't think all of us, at the drive-in did the same kind of thing. Like it was like Seen Razors, you know what I mean? Like we all like had to like go for it. And we pushed, and you don't see those many opportunities anymore, which is like a total bummer, man, because I feel like coming from El Paso, again, we had a hindrance in a certain way, but we had some really golden opportunities where it's like, I could have never opened for Korn at the Coliseum, right? I feel like anywhere else, but because we worked it hard at home, we had pushed the network, we had built a reputation of being able to do this where we could even draw on our own. It was like, you know what? It's called not music favors, not music friends. It's called music business. And at the end of the day, like everyone's got to pay the bill, and I want to contribute to paying that bill. So I'm going to work my butt off. And so, yeah, there was a lot of cool things that we got to do, man. Thanks to you.
I admired your hustle. I mean, it's just like, I don't know if bands are doing that. I've been attending some local shows and stuff like that, but see you out flyering and pushing it.
You had to, man. I was bugging everybody. It was like, you're gonna know. And I was like, even if they're saying mean things about me, at least they're talking about me, because I'm that guy that they know who's always cramming their band like down their throats, But it worked. I think it worked really well. It was we were able to do very well for ourselves in every band that I had been in, coming from El Paso, and it just helped, build everything, and it really instilled a work ethic in us that I don't know that I would have had coming from anywhere else, to be perfectly honest.
And you opened up for Rob Zombie, and you also did the Warped Tour. How was that? That was a good experience.
Dude, those were some of the coolest experiences. And, going back to Warped, it was Bobbie Welch. It was the perfect storm of things. Lila had scored a developmental deal with Capitol Records. We were working with Steve Kravac, who had just done these big MXPX Blink-182 records. They were on the big the big single that Steve had done. Steve's girlfriend actually worked for Warped Tour, and they were coming through and starting to add what was called the Kevin Says stage, where they would like grab locals and put because it was notorious, right? A band would show up in a city and be like, Kevin said we could play today. So, and he was real cool about doing that. Kevin Lyman was always like, yeah, man, Las Cruces, show up, dude, no big deal. We'd be on AOL, the whatever it was called back then, the screen chat stuff. I can't think of it right now. Instant Messenger, and we'd be emailing Kevin Warped, and yeah, man, show up, dude, show up to Albuquerque, it's cool. So I took those opportunities. I was like, I don't know if he's like just trying to call my bluff, but I'll be there, dude. Knock, knock, knock. Kevin said, right? So Steve's girlfriend worked for Kevin. It was coming through Cruces, and it was the perfect storm of like Bobbie was advocating for us to be on that show. We had caught wind with Steve Kravac and the Capitol thing, so we ended up grabbing a bunch of shows off the Warped Tour, which turned into eventually us. I think we did a couple main stage ones, like opening or second stage. It was the perfect storm, but in a lot of ways, I feel like we made our luck. It was like because we kept going. It's like, how can you be unlucky if you're just constantly going? You know what I mean? It's like you're going to get some of this, but you're also going to get some of this. But we never really sat around and waited. And being able to open for Rob Zombie was just, huge, man. I'm really, really lucky, even coming back home to play shows, once we moved and, went overseas and started playing overseas shows. I remember doing that Inked tour in July of like 2015 or something. That was super cool too. Being able to just play the Coliseum again, being able to do all the KLAQ barbecues in a super, direct support slot. Which is so thankful, man. I feel like I don't have enough time in the day to say thank you to everybody. Because every time we do something, it always comes back to El Paso for me, like one way or the other. I remember we had to learn how to hustle on our own. We had to learn how to do independent stuff on our own. I learned how to start an LLC as a band coming out of El Paso and going, you know what, if no one's going to give us a shot, we'll make our shot. I learned how to be a promoter and help other artists working with you, okay, Joe, how does this work? Like learning agents and this and splits and all that. Like I had a million questions for you because it was one, always my own show, but two, it was like, I kind of really like this and I think I'm really good at it and I would love, other bands to be able to do this. And that's when I got to meet booking agents through you, and it just, man, I could talk all day about like how much I love it and how much those, 15 to like 22 years old were just so pivotal in my life.
I'm glad you brought up Bobbie Welch. I mean, she's a legend here in El Paso. I mean, somebody that I've always looked up to. In fact, I just had lunch with her, and I told her that I was going to talk to
Bobbie.
you. Yeah. So she, for some of you who don't know who she is, I'm surprised if you don't, but she was the first person to start Ticketmasters here in El Paso. She worked at the Coliseum. She worked at the Special Event Center. And then she brought you two to the Sun Bowl. And of course, went to NMSU and brought all of those famous shows. And, I love that Warped Tour every summer. So she's working on something. So she says hello.
Oh, nice. You got to tell her I say hello, man. Bobbie, if you're watching this, I love you. Oh my God. Thank you for always taking a chance, because I know, it was, I believe it was you, Bobbie, and Keith Welch. I always annoyed. But it's just because we wanted it, man. I was like, they can say whatever about me, but they're going to know that this kid wants it, right? I was like, always, man. And it was like, either get on the train or get off, but like, here we go. And man, Bobbie, much love, because she was actually the one that got us on the Corn Show. And it was through all the building blocks that we did, working with you. And I think that's an important part that's missed for like a lot of artists in general still, is there's building blocks, man. There's steps. There's steps everyone's got to learn. There's steps everyone's got to take. And there's points in time for everybody, right? You don't just like jump out of the gate and like hit it. I mean, I remember even when I started, Murder FM, it was like our first show was opening up for The Used at Club 101. And you guys had hooked that up, but the same thing was there. You're like, well, we can put his new band on the bill because they're still going to push. You know what I mean? And a reputation like that is so like incredibly important because it's still business. And I learned all of that from you, man. I really, really did. Not just saying that because I'm on your show. I really did.
I think it's that Manhattan Heights work ethic. You and Cesar, and it's nice that you mentioned KLAQ because here in El Paso, that's our station. Love it or like it. I mean, there's some good people working there, and you've did a lot of work with them, and that's great. So did I. I never hated. I'm always suggesting what they should play, but I was always supportive, and so were you. So.
You know what, KLAQ, knowing radio, knowing now like with the stuff we've done with Billboard and just how like the radio world really works, I'm like looking at it from that side of the glass.
Yeah.
Like, okay, in the position that KLAQ has been in, they have like done quite a bit to be able to burst out with like the local show. I mean, that was a hard, the what is it called? Q Connected.
Yeah.
It was a lot harder to get than people think. People would always be like, play local artists, do this and this. When you realize the
business,
you're like, dude, that was a huge thing for them to pull off. You know what I mean? And to maintain and to keep, and like it's such a big thing that like even major artists like start debuting their tracks like on that show now. New artists that you would catch like as they're going to Sirius XM or whatever, they're still, you catch them on Q Connected, like Glenn's right in front of it, and I love that. And I mean, that was huge for us. So props to them always, because I knew the battle they were having to fight. It's not as easy as one would think, right? And we did our part too by trying to be a part of that by going, hey, let's do business. We would buy commercials on KLAQ for your shows, right? I mean, we'd go and put, whatever we had to put up to get, the advertising going. Like, let's build a partnership here. It was always, we got to do what we got to do, and we got to do business. And so I'm just glad to like be a part of that time. I'm glad to have those types of memories, and I'm glad to be able to just tell some of those stories, man. You know, if you like any one of these three bands, guess what? We all grew up on the same two blocks. That's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah.
It will always be like just a trip, you know, thinking like we skateboarded with each other, we trick or treated with each other, we went to the same, you know, elementary, middle, and high schools together. We had the same dream. We all had the same long hair. We all wore the same, you know, anthrax outfits with the black shirts and the tight jeans. And we all just dreamed, man. We all just dreamed, and it became real for all of us. And it's amazing.
Yeah. I enjoyed working on shows with you. It was not just, okay, we need an opening act. You know, you were involved with the flyers, then just about anything about promotions. You know, some of the bands that I worked with, you know, they were fun, but you know, it was just like they showed up. But you, it was like we talked almost every day about it, you know, how the show's working and stuff like that. So it was a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, man. I mean, I loved it. And that's that part that I say, you know, I needed to get reconnected with that love of just like every day you woke up, like music. I have my breakfast, music. I drink my coffee, music emails. I chase somebody down for something. We do this and this. We do the business. We, you know, we're writing something new, even if it's probably terrible because it takes, you know, 10 songs to find the one good one. The thing was, it was like, we kept going, and I loved that part, man. It was always the coolest feeling. Sometimes I had more fun, honestly, the build up to the show than the actual show. I'm so weird in that I loved the hard work of it, right? It's so weird to be like, what else can we dig out? What else can we pull off? Like, how else could we get someone else in the door? What else could we add? Some things didn't work. Some things worked really well. Some things when you didn't even try at all. Like I remember that one time we did a show with you at E9 when you had it in the big or Area 51, right? Just a huge room, and we filled it. Remember that? It was like 400 or 500 people there. We had the cover of What's Up magazine. They called us the next big thing for Lila. That was so cool, by the way. Like I still have that.
Cool, yeah.
But it was the weirdest. That was a super crazy organic moment I have yet to have experienced in my life. Even though we've done bigger things, there was something so awesome about that, because I don't think any of us knew. I remember you being at the door and you were like, dude, there's like a line before we opened, and we all kind of peeked out through the big lift up door and we were like, oh, no way. And then we're like, okay, that's it. Yeah. And then they just kept coming and we were like, dude, like we were just hoping to throw a local show for maybe 100 people, break even on our commercials, and Joe wouldn't get mad at me for spending that money, right? Like, that was all we cared about. Just get even, man. We played a show. We got to, like, woo our friends, you know, maybe hook up with a cute girl or something. And that was it. And have another show and have another opportunity, right? But it was just, it kept going and going, man. And it was like, I remember everyone that night, that was, like, the first time that I felt like we all kind of felt like there's something really cool, like, happening here with our band. Not too long after that, we ended up doing the thing with Capitol Records, and so it was one of those like, wow, this is really cool. That's one of my biggest moments I'll never forget.
I remember that show. One of my favorite shows that you did was that you did at Club 101 was acoustic. It was like, it was so intimate. It was so cool. And just the other day, I saw a local band that's going to play acoustic, or I just played one, but I'm like, I would always, after that, I'd ask the bands, hey, why don't you play acoustic? Oh, we don't do that. But that was a beautiful show that you played.
I love those, and I love because they're such a different challenge. Yeah. Right. And I was like, you know what? And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about you hit a wall. And you're like, what else can I do, man? Like, I'm not saying I've done everything. You're just like, at a certain point, there feels like unattainable goals. You're like, okay, like we've toured the world. That's been super awesome. You know, we've played in Korea and Finland and Europe and England and South America and, you know, wherever, Canada, everywhere that we've been, right? We've opened up for like awesome bands. We've been lucky enough, you know, Deftones, Rob Zombie, Five Finger Death Punch, Pretty Reckless, like Korn, all this different stuff that you're like, well, what else can we do? And I think the one thing that I really wanted to like chase is I'd never had like a big radio song. So I set my sights on like, okay, let's write one and see if we can make it work. And I focused, that became the challenge. It wasn't so much a band anymore. It wasn't so much, you know, the look. It wasn't so much just the overall presentation of something. It was like, hey, I'm gonna do something I've actually never really thought of. Let's just write a good song, right? Because when you're, for me, when I was starting out, we needed content because we needed to play, but we never really thought like hit song. How can we make it pop? Let's get onto the radio, right? So that was the next big challenge. And lo and behold, I was lucky enough to be able to like pull it off a couple times. But I didn't think that I ever would be able to. I never thought I would see a band name of mine like on Billboard or something. I never thought I'd look at a Billboard chart and see myself sandwiched between like Corey Taylor and the Foo Fighters. You're just like, what?
Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's awesome. Like I have like every single one of those Billboard charts. Like could probably take up a wall of how many of them I've saved just because I'm like, it's such a cool thing. But those are the things that you keep looking for, right? To like keep pushing. And that again comes from, back in the day being in El Paso going, what else can we do? How much further can we do? Right? And never just being okay with being okay. Like, that's cool. You know what I mean? We'll play in a couple months again. It was like, no.
So tell us about As Strange as Angels. I mean, this is your current project. You've been doing this for a while.
Yes, man, we dropped a single. So my drummer Michelle and I, which is another thing that I thought we would do a little different. Aesthetically, I wanted it to look different. I'm like, I've been in a stock band setup, 4 guys, 5 guys, but really I like to heavily influenced by Depeche Mode, 9 Inch Nails, especially from a production standpoint of Trent Reznor did everything, the writers and producers for, Depeche Mode. They essentially would put it together and then they would create what would be Depeche Mode, right? But I love that production side of it, right? Where it's like one or two entities really put it together. And so, and because my brain is always thinking, so I'm like, man, sometimes I can't expect everyone to be moving, for better or worse, as fast as I am. So developing a model like that and watching, someone like Trent in action, I was like, I want to do that for myself. But I also wanted something different. I'm all about female empowerment. Women rock harder than dudes, if you ask me. And I was like, I had a chance to work with Michelle Graves, my drummer, and I was like, you know what? Let's do something where we want to stick out of the pack. Good or bad, I don't know. But if you're scrolling on Instagram and you see a picture of a dude and a girl, it reminds me of like Tears for Fears or something, right? Or the White Stripes. You just kind of like, you stop for a second. Even if they stop to laugh, you're like, but they stopped, right?
Right.
So we were like, let's do this. And it started in a real interesting way. I was very unsure of myself. I was very reluctant, as confident as I had ever been, growing up in El Paso and doing my thing. Life had kind of slapped me around and I had lost a lot of that. So I was real scared. So we released one single in like 2017, Waves. And then I was kind of like, I don't know yet, right? But then we dropped Mirror Mirror in 2019. And when that hit Billboard, it was like, what? So we just turned it up from there and we're like, keep going, keep cranking it out. And to work from the show has been great because it's really, we like to think of ourselves as like the heavy White Stripes. And we work on that, creating a different aesthetic, creating a different sound. And what I really love about the project the most is I didn't want to be like, I'm doing a solo project because I'm like, whatever. Like what I did like about it is that being a singer, it's very difficult to change your sound. So someone like Dave Grohl can go from playing drums to singing and it's instantly different. But how is a singer going to sound different, right? So it was a challenge and that's what I loved, a challenge. Okay, how can I sound different? I had to change the way I phrase things. I had to change the way that I sing because we tend to kind of fall in our own patterns. I mean, I literally had to reinvent the way that I sing, find different tones in my voice, go into vocal coaches. I listened to way more pop than I probably ever would have in my life. And I listened to I went back to a lot of 80s stuff, a lot of just the stuff that you would play at Club 101, man. I would bump everybody because I'm like the top line. Those melodies in those songs, every time I see it. I was like, you know what? I want some good melody on top of something heavy. Sure, it may not fit the framework of what's happening. But again, I'm like, for me, I want the challenge and I want to do something different. I want to stick out for better or worse, right? So that's how the project really came to life. I was like, I want to have a heavy background, but I love The Cure, so I got my Bobbie Smith tattoo right here. There you go. Yeah. The name is Strange as Angels. I wanted to do something different in that I felt everything I had always done before was just had a different kind of presentation, and I wanted this to seem different. I wanted everything different about it, right? So if I wore black and everything, I want to wear all white. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but my point is I wanted to signal, hey man, I'm really trying to do something different here, because I feel like we as artists have a responsibility. If just because we can all release music and technology has like made that possible for all of us, doesn't mean that we should all just do it unless we've really, really put something into it, right? Because I feel like, well, I'm clogging up the space for someone else that can be doing something. I'm clogging up the space for maybe someone listened to my song and that's great, but there may be someone better out there who's, I took 5 minutes away from them. I took a set of ears away from them, right? So I was really like, I want to do something that I really feel like I'm bringing something different to the table. So it started with the name, it started with the band setup, it started with the feel. Just trying to do everything incredibly different. And now, here we are doing our thing, man. And it's been amazing. And it's been amazing to just do it the way that I want without feeling like I'm being a diva about it. Because I love all kinds of music. I love Prince. I love Bruno Mars. And I love those dudes in the way that like every song is different. So I'm like, you know what? I wish I could do that. I wish I could like write a heavy song or a pop song or an acoustic song, or just do whatever the heck I feel like doing that day. And it'd be cool, So this is giving me that vehicle to be able to do that.
I like how in your bio that you talk about new chapters, because a lot of people get down and they're like stuck. And I tell them, it's not over. New chapters, and I can totally relate to what your life experiences, and you're doing new chapters in your life.
Yeah, it definitely is, man. I mean, it's been one heck of a ride. For me, and to be able to like just continue to go, I'm so incredibly thankful. And I've learned a lot along the way. I've been humbled a lot in a lot of ways, and I've learned something really important, that you should never look down on someone unless you're reaching an arm out to pick them up. And that's the way I've been trying to like live, my own life now. Like, hey man, it's funny as you get older, you see these things and you're like, yeah, like everyone, you could be staring at someone and you have no idea what's going on in their life.
Absolutely.
So just reach out and help and be cool. At least you feel better about yourself too, right? But yeah, each one of these has been a chapter. And what's funny is I've tried to make the music parallel all the time without realizing it, right? Like if I listen to, 19-year-old Norman and Swim, you're like, that's where my life was then, compared to 40-year-old Norman and As Strange as Angels. You're like, wow, this is an entirely different world, and it parallels all of it. But at the same time, when I look at that, I'm like, man, I've been able to play music professionally for 25 years since I was 15 years old. You're like,
wow.
To me, that's crazy successful, right? It's just that I've been able to hang in there. You never really go away.
So you still have your music school in Dallas?
We have a studio. Yeah. COVID hit pretty hard in that regard, and we had to like just hit the pause button for a minute. But we turned a lot of that into studios. We're doing a lot of artist development, helping artists that are, 18 and over, that are really like doing their life's work now, their career work, kind of trying to be the ones that, where was I when I was 18 and 19? I wish I had someone to ask about, hey dude, what flyer looks cool? Hey, what do you think of this mix? Hey, how do I use the tools that I have to make the best recording for myself because I can't afford, real studio time? Hey, we want to book a tour. What markets should we hit? Like consultation that, things that I got from you, talking to Bobbie, even though you guys didn't realize that's what you were doing. I was going, okay, Bobbie says Albuquerque's cool. Joe likes Phoenix and Tucson. You know what? I'm going to follow their lead because they know people in that network. So follow my network, right? Do that kind of stuff. It was like, you guys were consulting me. You were doing artist development without realizing it, right? And I didn't realize that's what I was going for. It's just all those questions. And I was like, you know what? We should do this for artists that are, really going for it now. Like the adults that are like, yeah, I'm old enough to do it as a career, but where do I start? And it's even crazier now with the internet because it's as wild west and as available as it all is to all of us. At the same time, it's so, how do we get there? Because before we had funnels, right? Play the right clubs, get with the right promoters, get on these stations. There was MTV if you were lucky enough and that big, right? And get in those certain magazines. Now it's just like, what is there? You know what I mean? Because it's everywhere. So you're like, which one do I really sink my teeth into and latch on? What's the best artist infrastructure, excuse me, for me? What's the best artist roadmap that I should put together for myself? And all of that just came about over the years of thinking about how I helped propel myself to, the little spot of the pie that I got to get, right? And so we're doing way more of that. Like the lessons isn't really a thing as much as we should be developing artists, because there's so many people that have so many questions. And even though technology has bridged the gap, I equate it to this. Hey, I have the newest iPhone, right? With the best camera in the world. We can shoot movies and videos off of it, but it doesn't make me Steven Spielberg, right? So just because I have GarageBand doesn't mean I'm Bob Rock. There's still a lot that has to be learned underneath that. We all use the same tools to build and the same colors to paint, but there's still an art behind all of it, right? So that's more what we're doing with it now, and I'm able to work with some great people like Johnny Kelly from Danzig and Typo Negative. He's been my partner in crime on like working this. Michelle Graves, my drummer, works down there. We've just got cool stuff that we do to try and help everybody reach their goals.
Man, that's awesome. I always thought that when people moved away from El Paso, that you do so much more for El Paso being in other cities. Like to me, you're like one of the greatest ambassadors to El Paso, living in Dallas and, keeping in touch and stuff like that.
Oh man, you know what's crazy? I realized the other day, I've been working with some bands and some artists on songwriting that I was like, I have never really left El Paso because I have so many people that I work with from home. And every week when I see them, man, I miss it. There's a different type of, I feel like there's just a different little special something sprinkled on anyone from El Paso. And we have like this glue, like you just know. It's like in Dallas, I know all the people from El Paso somehow, some way. Like there's this weird connection, or you could be in a crowd and you're like, what's up? What's up? And you start talking, and then someone will say something, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm from, I used to love this place, Chico's, and you're like, oh.
So it's like I'll run into someone, and it's amazing how big El Paso is, if you ask me. You know what I mean? Because we're like everywhere, dude.
I totally agree. My kids live in Austin, and I just tell them just wear an El Paso shirt. They'll run into people at HEB or just everywhere.
What's funny is I feel like El Paso is like the equivalent of like Slayer. You know how when someone has a Slayer shirt, you'll see metal kids like Slayer. You could speak entirely different languages, but you have a Slayer shirt, you're like Slayer. El Paso is the same, man. Like it's just a different, beautiful, wonderful place that I think we all have a special place for in our heart. I've never met anyone from El Paso that doesn't love El Paso, right? I mean, when you live there, maybe, opportunities in life send you a different thing. But it's like we all go home. We all want to visit for the holidays. We all miss the night before Thanksgiving at Club 101. That was the jam, bro. That's just like where we all convened. And then everyone went to Chico's afterward. And then we all got our fix, at Kiki's and L&J. What? And I miss that, man. And I love that because the culture, I will always feel fortunate that growing up in El Paso, because I feel that there's a special culture. There's a special culture and a tightness that I am instilling in my son because our family's close. Like we see my mom moved out here from El Paso, and my brother, who even though he tours with like Dorothy, John Fogerty, just been doing that thing forever, it's still like he's here with us now because family stays tight. And that's something I noticed coming from El Paso, that I just touring the world. There's certain pockets that just like maybe don't see family the way like our culture saw family, right? Like we're all attached at the hip. And I love that. And I love instilling that in my son. I love making my son bilingual. That's such a huge thing, and it's funny, like my mom will say, it is. And it's funny because my mom will say something to him in Spanish, but he'll answer in English, but he knows exactly what she's saying, right? They talk to each other in Spanish and English, and it's the coolest thing. Yeah. And it's just like, I guess when you get to see the world, you see the differences, and man, I love El Paso. So El Paso, what's up? I have my best friend is out there right now, actually, for his birthday. That's what we do, right? There's things that happen in our life. Oh, I want to go home and celebrate this with everybody. That's, how I am.
I can only see your mom I can only imagine seeing your mom light up, seeing your son, like Norman, your son.
Oh, yeah, dude, she's over me now, dude. She's like, you're too much trouble, man. She moved out here probably like 3 months before he was born to be super grandma. She sold the house where we had lived forever, in Manhattan Heights, and she came out here to be grandma. And yeah, she's over me, man. She's like, bring them over, and then when she gets them done. But that's what we do. We see grandma 3 or 4 times a week. Like we
That's
have,
awesome.
sleepovers at grandma's. Like he spends the day with her. She picks him up from school. Like it's just one of those, like, I love that we can be able to like do that. And I realize that's something special that we got, from El Paso. There's just something different about it. I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to make it tangible to explain to somebody, but it's different and it's special, and it lives in us like all the time. I approach everything like, being from El Paso, I speak half English, half Spanish. You know what I mean?
That's great. So, what's up in your horizon? What's going on in your future? Like, you gonna tour? What are you gonna do? Or depending on.
Absolutely. We've got some really cool festival offers that Strangers Angels definitely wants to like jump onto. I'm actually working on new tracks as we speak. That's what we're doing for the rest of today. Because we were releasing so much during COVID, we're really interested to see what it'll be like when we play, because we had hit Billboard and done a few shows right before COVID happened. And then we had another single through COVID, hit Billboard again, and then a third one. And then a song, we were lucky enough to get some crazy good traction on Sirius XM on the Octane channel, which is huge for our demographic. And so we've had all these cool things in the radio and satellite world happen, but we don't know what it's going to be like when we actually go out and play, right? And it's exciting because you're like, wow, like, will we actually get people to our shows? What are shows going to be like? Are people really starving for it? I mean, like, it's an interesting conversation I've had with our agent, because we're like, dude, like, what is it going to be like out there? First of all, like, are people going to be going crazy like zombies, like just glad to get back to like live music, because we haven't had it. So we're like, I'll take anybody. Or is there real traction like for us that like, to see the fruits of our labors, I guess. Does that make sense? Like, it's the
Yeah,
first
we're
time I've
starting.
ever, yeah, it's weird to be
Feed
in
us.
this position of like, what's that?
Feed us. I want to see you playing live. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm ready
me
for
too.
that music.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to come do a show in El Paso. I think it'd be super cool. I'd actually love, this is probably just the craziest pipe dream in the world ever, but I've talked to Bobbie from Lila, and I was like, you know what would be really cool, man? It's like, I wish I could do like a reunion show someday with like every band I've been in, right? Where like we just take a couple songs from every band and each of us get together and just like be the friends that we were when we were 19 and 20 years old, just trying to chase a dream together. No anything behind it other than just, man, how cool would that be to like see home again, be on stage together again, have some fun with it? I mean, I don't know, that'd be super cool for
I'll
me
help with
because
that. I love
that'd be
that.
amazing.
I just ran into Bobbie, and there was a show, and I didn't realize he was the opening act. So he played at this place a couple of weeks ago, and we actually spoke about you. So I'm glad you guys stay in touch.
Yeah, we do, man. And which was really great. It was probably, what was a bummer is we were talking about this December 2019, I think, before, I don't even know, COVID just like erased my memory, maybe 2018. And we were talking about getting together to work on some stuff. And then it was like COVID just hit and kind of hit all of that. But he's got a new band, Dreams of Luna. I'm propping you guys right here with Mikey, the drummer from Lila. And man, that stuff is awesome. I've only heard clips of it, and I'm like, dude, like, why can I never write something cool like that? Like, it's really great. I'm so proud of those two dudes. Like, they're just tearing it up, and that's that part of it for me that I'm like, I would love to just get together with everybody, because as bands, you're like brothers, and so you have your ups and your downs, and it would be cool to just put that all away. I'm like, we've never seen a reunion show of any type where all the bands get together, right?
That would be a
So,
lot of fun.
that'd be interesting, right? And you just get, and speaking of chapters, you're literally seeing all the chapters happen in one. And that would be
Yeah.
pretty cool, man, because everyone's just played such an integral part in one way or another. I've learned something from everyone I've ever worked with. I've taken away something special. I've taken away great relationships, great friendships, great people that even though you don't keep in touch, like you realize how much of a difference they made. And there's something to be said with the people that you spend, you know, hours with, days with, weeks with, and hundreds upon thousands of miles together crammed in a van, right? That you can't help but somehow just have a special connection, right? At least that's the way I feel. Like if someone ever, you know, wanted to hurt one of my old band members, I'd be mad. I'd be like, hey, we can still have some old beef, buddy, over that song in the set list, but don't touch my boy. I don't care if I haven't heard from him in 10 years, right? Because there's something special that like we were all doing something together. We were creating a life together, man, and it's crazy, and it doesn't leave you. Like I think of everybody all the time and got nothing but love.
Man, I love that. And it was so good to talk to you. If people want to follow you, what's the best way to on social media or?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, the one-stop shop, we keep it real. We love asstrangedasangels.com because that gives you everything all in one. But if you want to hit us up, Twitter is at angels_strange. That one bums my business OCD out because someone else has the handle at @strangedasangels, and he hasn't touched that account apparently in like 7 years. So we're all like, dude, seriously, just let it go. Instagram is at @strangedasangels. I do have to say, if you hit our social media, it probably won't be me because I'm the worst at it. As much as I love being a promoter, it's all about Michelle. She loves to do that. And it's just like the best move for us. Like it's the coolest thing. So anyone messing around on social medias, that's Michelle. She's awesome. Tell her hello. And we're everywhere. We've got new singles out. The latest single, The Curse, is on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you get it. There's Tidal, Deezer, a million and one places you can get it now. And be looking out for the new stuff too, and be looking out for some shows because I mean, I would love to just get back in it, play these shows, see what's out there, and I'd love to have a reason to have to come to El Paso. Like I would pay to play a show just to come back home.
Oh, well, I think we need to call Bobbie.
There you go, Bobbie. Let's do it.
We had lunch the other day, and she said she's itching to do shows. So I love working with her and love working with you.
You know what? How is El Paso like looking on the scene?
There's a few places doing shows. I mean, I think people are ready to come out. I'm still DJing, so last night we did this.
And I love that
Morrissey tribute, and there was a lot of people that came out that had just came out after getting the shot, stuff like that. So they're more comfortable coming out. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's like fans of music, they're ready to come out. So I mean, I'm seeing I'm seeing some local bands playing. There's guys like 202 and some other bands that are playing regularly. So they're the ones that are playing acoustic, and I was like, wow. Norman did that a long time ago.
Dude, I love me some acoustic shows. And what's funny is on the surface, it seems like if you do it right, at least to me, it seems like way less work. You're like, oh, acoustic, we don't have to do all this. But in reality, to put on a really good acoustic show, we were like, wow, this actually takes way more work for all kinds of reasons. You're like, one, we've got to be really good. Two, I've got to sing in tune and remember my lyrics. I was like, whoa, that's a tough one. Because every time, first song, I love playing live so much, I always get the butterflies. And it's like the show starts, the intro rolls, and you're like, what's the first line, dude? Like I always forget, right? And it was just the preparation into it to make it sound good. I'm like, man, it is way more challenging to make an acoustic show resonate and hit you than it is an actual full-on live show, because you've really got to get a lot of yourself into it. Then you've got to get that sound to like transcend to like the listeners and keep them from being bored, and not necessarily bored, but you got to move them, right? Like I remember that acoustic show being so great because we still had people in the audience moving and dancing and bopping their head. And it was like, okay, we're translating the energy from here to here, because it wasn't a sit down type acoustic thing we did. It was like a full on like show. So it was really challenging, but it was like super fun. So I'd love to come and do one of those again, man. I love home. I love everything about it. Nothing but love for El Paso all the time. And you never know, maybe my son and I'll just make our way back there.
That sounds good.
Awesome, man.
Well, thank you for being on the show. And I know we're going to have you come back again gets closer to letting us know what you're working on.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate it. Much love to you always, dude. From being a punk ass kid to being a punk ass adult, man, you have always been there for me. You've always been a believer, and that never leaves my heart, dude. I honestly mean that. And for you, that's why I'm always like, for your family, I will do whatever because you've always done for us, man. And I truly appreciate you, brother. Much love.
Likewise. I love you, man.
All right, man. You be good, dude. El Paso, be good. Nothing but love. Bring it in. All right. I'll see you later, man. Be good.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, bud. Bye-bye.
I want to thank everyone for tuning into episode 5 of the Joe Dorgan Show. You can catch this show on YouTube. Joe Dorgan. God, I don't know the address. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll post it there. But once again, it was so much fun talking to Norman Pangle. Thanks for listening.